So, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see you all. This weekend, no, we're not on a weekend, are we?
Yeah.
This is your weekend, right? Okay. Well, anyway, these next 2 days, we're going to be dealing with the meditation called shamatha, or calm abiding, and also going through what are called the Brahma Viharas, or the immeasurable meditations on loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. So, first of all, I think it's important to understand why we're going to bother. Because why go to all the trouble of trying to get a more quiet mind? What's the problem? Our modern culture is designed to get us thinking more and making our, they keep inventing all these gadgets to simplify our lives, which, as we all know, really just end up complicating our lives. And everybody nowadays is supposed to be multitasking, meaning that they're getting their mind pulled in 3 different directions at the same time in the name of simplifying life. So it's important to understand what we are trying to do here. How many of you have never meditated? Oh, well, that's very impressive. 1. So, as a result, you know perfectly well that the first thing that we discover when we sit down to try to quieten or pacify the mind is that essentially our minds are out of control. Many people, when they first start to meditate, complain that now their minds are noisier than they ever were. And it's made the condition worse instead of making it better. But of course, that is merely that we're becoming more conscious of the problem. Normally, because we are just going with the flow, we are not conscious that we are not in control of the flow. But when we try to focus the mind on one point to develop attention, then we very quickly discover that the mind has its own agenda and is not really interested in our good intentions. So therefore, it's very important first to learn how to become the masters of our mind instead of the slaves of our mind. One could think of it, because there are so many different meditations out there, especially nowadays, so many techniques, so many different approaches. And, people get quite confused. Also, everybody claims that their particular approach is the quickest, fastest, and most esoteric and secret, and absolutely, 100% guaranteed to give you enlightenment with the least amount of effort in the quickest amount of time. And so people get very confused, basically. But the problem is that even the very most supreme method, if such a thing exists, cannot be practiced with an untamed mind. While our minds are wild and out of control, then even the most wonderful teachers and the most wonderful methods are not really going to work. And so therefore, it's very important for us to get our basics firm and stable, get our foundations up. In India, we have a temple which took several years to build and contains some very beautiful murals. In fact, the whole temple is decorated wall to wall with these paintings, which took several years to complete. And so people come in and they admire all the murals and the mandala on the ceiling and so forth. But this whole temple rests on very deep foundations. And it took us about 2 years or more just digging the foundations and getting all the plumbing system in. And of course, during that time, nobody was particularly excited. Come and look at our foundations. Oh, wow, I've never seen such beautiful foundations. Whoa, deep, whoa. No, nobody cared. Yeah, it's a hole, pit, so. But without those foundations, the temple would not last. The temple would not be able to, within a very short time, cracks would appear, damp will rise, the whole thing will start to look like a slum. And so it's very important to get the basics strong and firm. Once the basics are strong and firm, the rest comes up quite easily. So if this applies to a building, it very much applies to our mind. If we can get our mind tamed, a well-tamed mind brings happiness, the Buddha said. So if we can get our minds well-tamed, then the actual training of the mind is a relatively simple process. But like an animal, if you have a horse, you look at the horse running wild and you think, well, that's a very good horse. That horse has great potential, but it's wild. So if we want it to go left, it will go right. If we want it to go straight forward, it will rear up and run back. It won't do what we want it to do. It won't obey anything we ask of it. So therefore, first we have to tame the horse. We have to get the horse calmed down, amenable, interested in the idea of being trained. Befriend the horse so that the horse wants to cooperate, wants to go. So if we say go right, it will go right. If we say go left, it will go left. No problem. And so this is like our mind. Once we have the mind well tamed, once we have the mind amenable, we are no longer fighting the mind. If we want to settle the mind in one direction, it will settle. If we want to think of certain qualities or certain meditation objects, it will think of them. If we want it to concentrate on the work we have at hand, it will settle and concentrate. We become masters of our mind, not the slaves. But because we have the habit of being so out of control, which only those who have tried to meditate can really appreciate, it takes time. So the Buddha started with this basic practice of what is now described as calm abiding, the shamatha meditation. Shamatha means something very peaceful. It's probably akin to the shalom, the shah. Shamatha is peaceful. And so it's a matter of getting the mind not only calmed down, but also one-pointed, attentive. Our attention span nowadays has really decreased like anything. Apparently, the average attention span of a child in America nowadays is 4 seconds, which is frightening. 4 seconds and it's distracted. So what we need to do first is to learn how to settle the mind on one object and rest it there. It's not that we're forcing the mind to do anything. We're not suppressing thoughts. I think it's very important to understand that the object is not to stop thinking. The object is not to suppress or repress our thinking. The thinking mind is not the problem. The problem is that we identify with our thinking mind and get swept away by the thinking mind. If we think of the thinking mind like a river, then much of the time we're immersed in that river and just swept along. So that's the problem. So now we are trying to learn how to step out of that river. The river can still carry on running, no problem. But we don't have to be swept along with it. So this is what we are going to be doing at this point. Is the first step is to learn how to step out of the river. Now, the ordinary thinking mind, our ordinary conceptual mind, the mind stream, could be considered as the gross level of the mind. That is our most obvious thinking process, which we're all very familiar with. It's the noise that goes on continually in our heads, rather like living in a house with the television turned on the whole time. It's always there, sometimes in the foreground, sometimes in the background, but it's constantly chattering away. So that is the basic conceptual thinking mind. What we are trying to do now is become more aware to separate the next level of mind, which might be called the subtle mind. This is also known in Buddhism as mindfulness. And it's the quality of mind which observes. Normally, we're so caught up in our mental thinking that we are not aware that we are aware. So we need to separate that from the ordinary flow of the mind. And so we do this by focusing on an object. It can be any object, actually. The object in itself is not important. What is important is the observation of the object. When I first started, the yogi who was teaching me, he gave me a pebble, a little stone, and you had to put it just a forearm's length in front on the floor and just fix the gaze on this pebble. and only give the attention to the pebble. The pebble being a good object insofar as how much can you think about a pebble? I mean, you cannot really get into too many fantasies pebble-wise. And so this allows the mind just to relax and keep it focused without actually thinking about it. It's also a non-reflective surface, so it doesn't hurt the eyes. It also trains the eyes to stay slightly opened and one-pointed. So my first meditation object was this pebble. But normally in Tibetan schools, most Tibetan schools, the object of meditation is, of course, the breath. The breath has various advantages as an object of meditation. The first one being that we cannot breathe in the past or the future, we can only breathe now. So if we are really centered on our breath, then we are in the present for that time until we start thinking about the breath, in which case we've lost it again. But if we are just aware of the breathing without commenting, just knowing the breath as it comes in and out of the nostrils, then at that moment the mind is in the present. Also, of course, we are always breathing, which means that even during the day, while we are doing any action, or when we're walking, or when we are sitting, even while we are driving, or while we are working, we can also be conscious of the breath coming in and out, and bring the mind back again into the present. And especially also if we get very agitated, or something is coming up which is making us feel in any way very emotional, then again we can just center ourselves by being at one with the breathing in and the breathing out. So the breath is a very useful tool to use for getting the mind centered. It's just it's something which is very immediate, very automatic, but can, in the moment we think of it, be used by us for making the mind more concentrated. So normally, in most Buddhist schools, step number one is therefore to bring the attention to the breath. It's there's really nothing much to do. The only problem that we encounter is that we don't do it. The actual technique is very simple. It's very easy, nonetheless, to become distracted. So what we need to do here, step number one, is just to keep the body, the back straight. This is so the energies run up and down the spine without, getting obstructed in any way. So if you're sitting on the floor, then sit up nicely. If you're sitting on chairs, sit up nicely and keep your feet on the ground. The important thing really is that the back should be as straight as you can make it without being tense. It's so that the energy, the chi, the prana, will not be obstructed. And also, if we slouch, then again the mind slouches. We get sleepy. And so it's very important to sit up nicely. That alerts the mind that now we're being serious. Then the other point is to keep the mind very relaxed. Sometimes when people are trying to meditate, they get very tensed up, I've got to concentrate. And then meditation becomes just another form of struggle and strain and stress, instead of being the antidote to this. So it's important to keep the mind, the essential mind, feeling very open and spacious and relaxed, but at the same time, the attention very focused. Sometimes you could keep the image of like a paraglider. You know paragliders? Paragliders? Yes, they have these kind of like big wings, and they fly in the sky. You know, they're in the middle, and then they just fly, and you know, it's very quiet, and you've just got this vast expanse of sky, but you know, at the same time, you're not going to fall asleep. Yeah, you're very attentive where you are. It's a very open spaciousness all around you. So try to keep the mind rather like that. Open and spacious, relaxed. It's wonderful, actually, because in all the problems, all the busyness of your life, all the difficulties and stresses and strains and problems to be solved, but right now, all you have to do is sit and breathe and know you're breathing. That's all you have to do. So please don't make that into another stress. There's nothing to do, just to breathe and know you're breathing. Now, of course, we all know that this sounds very simple, which it is, but it's not easy. Because within 3 or 4 breaths, the mind has said, yeah, got that, okay, now what? And off it goes. But that's okay. As soon as we recognize that the mind has lost its object, we bring it back. And then it gets distracted, we bring it back. It goes off, and we bring it back. However many times we lose our concentration and get swept along by our thinking mind, for that many times we bring it back. The only time that we need to feel, oh dear, was when we give up and don't bring it back. So even if 100 times we have to bring the mind back, that was a good session. Because the more we remember, and the sooner we remember, the more we get in the habit of remembering and noting when we are distracted. So the faster, eventually, we will be able to pick it up and bring the mind back again. The mind is habituated to being distracted. It's so used to going off wherever it feels like going that it's very hard in the beginning to encourage it to stay settled. And it will think up all sorts of excuses why it needs to go off. It just goes. But it doesn't matter. This is the thing. We mustn't regard the fact that our minds are so distracted as being a problem. As long as we are very patient and persevering, and every time it goes off, we just quietly bring it back, then there's no problem. But that determination has to be there. That we are going, it's not a matter of having a fight with our mind, you know, and getting upset with ourselves because we cannot concentrate properly. That is counterproductive. That's just the ego fighting with the ego. Our minds go off, we bring them back. They go off, we bring them back. That's all we have to do. And really put our effort just into sincerely trying to be with the breathing. Just breathe and know we're breathing. That's all. If it helps for anybody who is especially distracted, particularly maybe at this time, because so many of you are sitting together, then one can count the breaths. On the out breath, count 1. Then in and out breath 2. And then in, out breath 3. And up to 5, or if you can manage beyond that, 10. If the mind in the meantime has gone off again, then start back again at 1. But no blame. This is just a check to see how, how we're doing. At first maybe we only get 3 breaths, then we get 5, then we get 7. I mean, it's just to help us to see how it's going. If we find that a distraction or we don't need it, then don't bother. I mean, these are all just ways to encourage the mind to stay in the present. The mind doesn't want to stay in the present. This is the problem. It loves to be in the past or in the future. The one place it doesn't want to be is right now. So this is why it's always a challenge to retrain the mind to stay with what is actually happening rather than just commentating on what's happening, thinking about what's happening. So I think the instruction is fairly obvious. We sit nicely and we breathe and we give our attention to the breath. We are developing the thing is what we are trying to do is 2 things, but it comes naturally. We cannot force it. We are trying to hone our ability to be attentive, to be single-pointed. And when that happens, the more concentration we give to one point, the less background noise there will be. The background noise will calm itself of itself. We don't have to calm the mind. The mind will do that by itself as we get the ability to bring attention to one point. So we are developing this more subtle level of awareness by our attention. That's all. So the background noise is totally unimportant. It's going away, chatter, chatter, chatter. We're not attending to it. It is as if you're in a house where the television or the radio is going on, but one is reading a book or a magazine, or one is looking at a computer. Anyway, one's attention is not on the background chatter. One's attention is on what one is reading. So one doesn't need to turn off the chatter. One just fades it out because one's attention is on the subject matter that we want to concentrate on. So here, the subject matter we are concentrating on is our breath. And everything else, external noises, they're just outside, they're nothing to do with us. Internal noises, it's just the usual old chatter. It's not going to tell you anything exciting, so don't listen. It's just the same old replays every week. So we don't need to listen to the inner noise. We don't need to listen to the outer noise. We can just let them carry on by themselves. Our attention is focused on breathing in and breathing out and letting everything else just go. That's all we're doing. It's breathing and knowing, observing. That's all. Isn't it wonderful? So relax the mind and breathe and bring the attention to the thoughts, to the breath. So how are we doing here? So maybe just for 10 minutes, we will just sit quietly and focus our attention on the breath. So everybody try to sit up nicely. Sorry, you're a bit cramped, but I hope you can manage. Relax the body, but keep it in a good position. Don't slouch. So the two main problems which people encounter with this type of meditation is, first of all, that the mind does not want to calm down and it becomes very distracted. That's something which most people encounter at first. And I think basically the only solution is to just keep practicing and make the determination that, no matter how much distraction one experiences, that one is going to have the determination to keep coming back to the object of meditation and not becoming, overcoming distraction by non-distraction. Sometimes it's considered that, if you eat a heavier meal beforehand or something like this, just to get the mind a bit settled. But basically, I think the only solution is just to keep practicing. It's like any skill. If you want to really become proficient, you have to practice again and again and again, again and again, until finally it becomes automatic, it becomes effortless. I mean, everyone knows this when it comes to mastering an instrument or a sport or any other skill. And this is certainly true with mastering the mind, that it does indeed take much application and dedication and practice. The other obstacle which is likely to come is a more insidious one, because it disguises itself sometimes as progress. And this is what could be called the sinking mind. And this is when the gross distractions of the mind have calmed down. Then the mind gets into a nice, very peaceful state. You just could sit there forever. Hardly any thoughts float up in the mind. It's all very calm. It's all very peaceful. And the point is that the mind has sunk and has in fact gotten to a level of very akin to sleep. But this can mask itself as being a deeper level of meditation, so one has to be very conscious. The important thing, how one can really tell, is that the mind, when one is really in a state of meditation, should become brighter, more vivid, more focused. even while the thoughts are settling down and the mind is becoming more quiet, at the same time, there is an inner sense of waking up, because meditation is intended to wake us up, not to put us to sleep. And so if we get into that semi-dreamy state, this is not a sign of meditation. It's a sign probably we should have slept better the night before. And so we need to wake ourselves up. This is a very common problem. For example, in sometimes they like have representations of the great 11th century Tibetan yogi Milarepa, with the central figure of Milarepa, and then around him little vignettes of his life. And in one of them, he's sitting there with a lighted butter lamp on his head, because when he was training, then he, in order to stop from, dropping asleep, he would put a butter lamp on his head. So, you're going to remember and sit nicely during that time. So a friend of mine, she adapted this. She was a bit nervous of lighted butter lamps, but she put a little bowl of filled to the top with water on her head, with the same idea that if you start nodding off, chomp. And another meditation master, he meditated on the edge of a well. If you're meditating on the edge of a deep well, you will not go into a state of semi-sleepiness. So it's all methods just to keep one awake, to keep one really aware. Because in all these circumstances, the important thing is not to allow the mind to drift into a kind of heavy sleepiness, which can, as I say, mask itself as being deeper levels of meditation, because you feel you could sit there forever peacefully. But in fact, the mind is just blanking out, and that sense of vivid awakeness, which is very important, is absent. Now, there's a quality of the mind which notes what's happening in the mind. The quality of mind of focusing is called smriti or sati in Pali. It means, it's translated in English as mindfulness. It's that quality of knowing. And there's another aspect of the mind which comes along with it. They always mention the two together in classical texts. And this is, in Tibetan, it's called sheshin. There's no, I don't know in Hebrew, but in English there's no real translation, so every translator finds his own. But it's sometimes translated as alertness or introspection or clear comprehension or whatever. What it is this ability of the mind to overlook and check up just from time to time, to see while we're meditating, then, and developing this ability to be attentive and concentrated, this mindfulness, there's another part of the mind that sort of spies on what's happening. Looks. Is the mind distracted? Concentrate. Is the mind sinking? Wake up. And so forth. It just checks. If everything's okay, everything's on track, it just subsides again. If things have got out of balance, then it makes sure that it is rectified and then subsides again. So it's not there the whole time. We're not checking up on ourselves every minute. But from time to time, this ability of the mind just to overlook how the session is going, what is the mind doing in this moment, And then if everything is fine, just goes back again. If it's not fine, then it sees what is the problem and tries to deal with it. So it's a very useful adjunct to our mindfulness training, and the two are always mentioned together in the classical texts. They support each other. So it's very important when we are practicing to, from time to time, just check up that it's going the way we would want it to go. And it also reminds us what we're doing. We're not just sitting there breathing and going to sleep, or just following out our, remembering all the things we've got to do later in the day, and this is a nice quiet time to think about it. That we have a meditation aim here, and that's what we should be doing. So this ability to be able to remind ourselves and to check up how everything is going is a very useful part of the training. So now we'd like to leave that for now. We will go on with that this afternoon. And now we are going to deal with the first of what are called the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes, which are usually called, the Tibetan means the immeasurables or the illimitables. These are 4 qualities of mind that the Buddha very much recommended for all of us to practice. They are, in Sanskrit, they are Maitri, in Pali better known as Metta. Then compassion is Karuna. Empathetic joy is Mudita. And even-mindedness, equanimity, impartiality is Upeksha. So the first of these is the quality of Maitri, which really means friendliness. It has the idea of a friend. A friend is someone who likes us and is kind to us. So therefore, that sense of kindness, a friend wishes well for you. A friend is there to help you, to support you. That's what a good friend is for. And so this quality of mind, of being friendly and loving towards oneself. In English, of course, love is a very multifaceted word, very misused, as we all know. I love my parents, I love my children, I love my partner, I love ice cream, I love, television, I love all sorts of things. And I love to meditate. All of these words for love have very different connotations. We're talking about 2 very different emotions. And so since the word love in English, I'm sure in Hebrew you have different words for different kinds of love. Or you should if you don't. Because we're dealing with romantic love, altruistic love, mere pleasure, and so forth. I mean, they're very different feelings, actually. And it's very sad that, at least in English, in Hebrew, they all come under the same word. Because in Asian languages, they don't. They have very different words for different meanings of love. And so this word, therefore, is not usually just translated as love, because love can mean so many things. And so it's usually translated either as loving kindness or as friendliness. Loving kindness is a nice word because it's kind of warm and soft, and doesn't have so much the idea of romance or attachment. Your loving kindness is Actually, they're a very nice word. And it's quite a good translation for what the word means. It means a feeling of goodwill, and is summed up in the phrase, may you be well and happy. May you be well and happy, may you be peaceful and at your ease. That wish for well-being for others. So this is a very important quality for us all to develop. And traditionally, we start by sending loving kindness to ourselves. People, Buddhism on the whole is the most ego-bashing religion in the world. I mean, it's always down on the self and self-cherishing mind. But in fact, one is traditionally always recommended to start by giving loving kindness and compassion and so forth to oneself. So I think we have to discuss what this means a little bit. Our sense of self, our sense of an I, which we mostly associate with our thinking mind, our emotions, our gender, our family, our race, our nation, all of this, our memories, our opinions, our beliefs, our likes, our dislikes, all of this we put into a big bundle and we think, me. And we have this sense that within us there is this enduring, unchanging I at the center of everything, like a spider in its web, endlessly weaving. And so this sense of an I, which we associate also with our normal thinking mind and our personality and our likes and dislikes and so forth, our gender and race, this is what the Buddha said was our fundamental delusion. When Buddhism talks about ignorance, it's not talking about a lack of knowledge of quantum physics or, what is the capital of Guatemala. It doesn't mean that. It means that we don't know who we really are. And we don't know what's really going on outside. We don't see things as they really are. And because of this fundamental understanding that we are all acting in ignorance, therefore, the Buddhist texts are very much are designed to dissolve the sense of an ego in order to gain a much deeper level of our being. But at the same time, it must be understood that this sense of self, of ego, which eventually we are hoping to dissolve into something much deeper, more profound awareness, in the meantime, that ego is what's going to be walking the path, right? I mean, our essential nature doesn't need to be trained to be loving and kind. Our essential nature is love, right? We don't have to tell our true nature to be loving. That's who we really are. But our ego hasn't got on yet, right? So the irony is that since we spend so much time trying to make the ego feel good and trying to get happiness for ourselves and avoid pain, how much actually most people do not like themselves and have a lot of psychological problems, either which they're facing or not facing. And so, therefore, the radiation of loving kindness and of compassion starts with ourselves. It's like our sense of ego, our sense of self is damaged. It's hurting. That's why psychiatry is so popular. I mean, in America, for sure, I don't know a single American who doesn't have a therapist. It's like a dentist, you know? I mean, everybody has their dentist, everybody has their therapist. Now, you don't go to a therapist unless you feel there's something wrong. As you don't go to a dentist, you know, you've got a toothache, you go to your dentist. You know, you feel bad inside despite having everything outside so nice. Something's still wrong inside, you're not happy. So you go and you pay lots of money and you lie on the couch and you talk about yourself, right? My problems, my childhood, my difficult parents, how hard everything is for me, blah, 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 blah. You talk and talk and talk, all about me, and then you pay. So actually, loving kindness meditation is a much cheaper way of dealing with this fragmented sense of self, this hurting self. We cannot really walk the path with a self which is really injured. We have to heal ourselves first. We have to be healthy. This is why the Buddha recommended this shamatha meditation, because as we go into deeper levels of absorption, all the psychological factors have to be balanced, otherwise it won't happen. And along with this loving kindness and compassion meditations to heal. It's like a balm which gradually heals the hurts inside ourselves. And in order, therefore, to genuinely give love, genuine love, not based on need, but based on that sense of inner wholeness and balance, that we don't seek another just because we're hoping they're going to solve our problems. If we develop relationships based on an inner balance and wholeness, then those relationships are genuine and based on genuine loving kindness and compassion towards ourselves, towards others. So this is a very important quality. And recently, it's so important. It's so important that, well, there's a very well-known anecdote of when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was, he has these mind and life conferences every year. He's very interested in science, especially in quantum physics and in neuroscience. So every year, eminent scientists come and they have conferences together to discuss, the interrelationship between their thinking and Buddhism. And so one time he had a group of neuroscientists and psychiatrists, and His Holiness was talking about what is called the self-cherishing mind. That means the fact that we are always endlessly thinking first about ourselves and only and ourselves and others who are close to us. And we don't really care that much about anyone else. It's a very inward-looking mind, which is always looking after me and mine. And so one of the psychiatrists said, yes, but what about low self-esteem and self-hatred? And His Holiness looked completely blank and said, what? And he said, well, you know, what about, yeah, all this self-cherishing, but what about people who suffer from really, you know, low self-esteem and don't like themselves? And His Holiness asked the translator what he's talking about. So he put that into whatever Tibetan is. And then His Holiness thought, and then he said, I think very rare. Very rare. Eminent psychiatrist turned to his eminent colleagues and said, whoever suffers from low self-esteem and self-hatred? And everybody put up their hand. And for His Holiness, I think this was a big breakthrough. Because on the whole, Tibetans feel okay about themselves. This is why they could become model refugees. All the terrible things which they went through, they had an inner resilience because they believe in themselves. And they believe in their Buddha nature. Even the simplest peasant believes in their inherent goodness. And so even they lost everything on the outside, all their loved ones, all their possessions, their religion trashed, ending up in this completely alien society. But they landed on their feet. They could manage. You know, they were still smiling, still being very kind and generous and laughing and, you know, doing their practices. Because they had that inner sense of stability. And so therefore, when many lamas teach Tibetan Buddhism, they teach it from that point of view, that our big problem is our pride. But for many, many outside of Tibet, that is not the problem. And of course, for modern Tibetans, it's not the problem because they're caught in two cultures now. So I think we need to go back to what the Buddha was saying originally, which was that we need to stabilize our sense of self, balance it, heal it, before we can walk the path towards the dissolution of our ignorant sense of self. Do you understand? So therefore, this metta bhavana, this meditation on loving kindness, is a way to heal. On the other hand, His Holiness's translator, Tenzin, a wonderful scholar, he has started an institute in America with a 6-week course in these illimitable meditations, with the emphasis on the first two of loving kindness and compassion. And he said that he found, surprise, surprise, that there was tremendous resistance in the West for people sending loving kindness to themselves. They couldn't. They could send loving kindness out to others, but they couldn't forgive themselves. They couldn't get to the point where they genuinely wished themselves to be well and happy. So he changed his program so that the first thing they did was to send loving kindness to somebody that they love. The routine is that first one sends loving kindness to oneself, then to someone one loves, then to someone to whom one feels indifferent, the neutral person. That means somebody that you know, but you don't really think about whether they're happy or sad. So now you really want them to think how wonderful it would be if they were happy, because all beings want to be happy. Ooh. You see, it's agreeing, even. Absolutely, all beings want to be happy. So first you think of giving loving kindness to yourself. Then when you're filled with loving kindness, you give it to someone that you really care about. Then to someone you feel neutral about, your neighbor, a colleague at work, somebody you see, but you've never really thought about them one way or the other. That person, just imagining, if you were that person, how much you would like to be happy, and wishing that for them. And then to someone you have problems with, traditionally called the enemy. So think of somebody who traditionally you could possibly think of as the enemy, and imagine sending them loving kindness. So there are many ways to do this meditation. Either one can just repeat to oneself, may you be well and happy, may I be, we start with ourselves, but if you find that difficult, then start with somebody that you love first. But the idea is, may I be well and happy, may I be peaceful and at my ease, or whatever phrase speaks to you. It doesn't matter. In Nepali they say Sukhi hontu, which means may you be happy. But you can think of any phrase. But the important thing is the feeling of how good it would be, like pouring in a very, nice soothing lotion onto painful wounds, to get the feeling of wishing happiness, and along with that, forgiveness, acceptance, not thinking about suffering, that comes second. That's the next one, which is compassion. But just how nice it would be to have joy in the heart, wishing that for oneself. If one likes visualization, then one can visualize like a small golden pearl or a diamond at the center of one's heart, which represents one's intrinsic nature, one's Buddha nature. Of course, one's Buddha nature isn't really a diamond. But for the sake of visualization, we're going to think of it like that. This is the clear light nature of the mind. And then that sends out light. And it sends out light which comes and slowly infiltrates the whole of one's body, every cell of one's body, every cell of one's brain, all the neural pathways, every cell down to the feet, all over, just gets filled like a cup with water overflowing with this warm golden light of joy and peace and health and well-being. And just visualize that with the thought, may I be well and happy, may I be well and happy, may I be peaceful, at my ease, and wish that. All of these meditations in the beginning normally meet with resistance. And I think if they don't, one is either very skilled in meditation or not doing it properly. So like anything, it's like sitting down to a musical instrument for the first time. At first, one's fingers hit all the wrong keys, it makes a terrible sound, and one thinks, oh, goodness me, And so then if at that point one thinks, oh, this shows I'm not musical, and gives up, then that's it. But if one thinks, well, other people have mastered this instrument, So I also can. It just takes practice. And then if one practices over and over and over, eventually it becomes more and more real, more and more sinking into one's being. I mean, again and again, people have mentioned this, that they've gone on and on with these meditations and it all seemed completely useless. And then suddenly in say, a very, what might otherwise have been a very stressful situation, suddenly their mind opened up with floods of love in the most unlikely circumstances. And they recognize that actually all the time it's just slowly wearing away the resistances we put up to opening up the heart. So it's a very ancient traditional practice. I mean, for example, monks in Thailand who would meditate in the jungle, again and again reported, you know, when they came out from their meditation, seeing like a tiger sitting in front of them peacefully, or a poisonous snake. And never has there been ever any reports of monks being harmed by these animals, whereas they would attack villages, because the animals would feel those vibrations of harmlessness and loving kindness and would come close and just sit there quietly like a pussycat, because you know, they understand that this, our heart desperately needs this very healing. It's very important in this world to forgive ourselves, forgive others, wish people well. All beings want happiness. So this is a meditation designed specifically for that. That's all it's wanting. Yes, you see, it agrees completely. Yes, this is what the world wants. Loving kindness, a bit more loving kindness in this world would help a lot. So if you can, then first give the loving kindness to yourself. Really wish yourself well. It is not egotistic. Our healed self has to walk the path. It's only at the end that the self, that unreal conditioned self, will naturally fade away. In the meantime, that self is the one walking the path. So it has to be a healthy self, which really is a kind self. We have to be kind. And if there's anybody that we are not being kind to, then that should be that person. Because an unkind heart is a very painful heart, for oneself and for others. Why live with that? Why not transform it into something much more beautiful? So this directly hits at ourselves. We look at ourselves, and those areas of ourselves which are not kind, either to ourselves or to others, then we begin to soften it and replace that with kindness, so that nobody has to fear us. They know that we will never hurt them knowingly. Anybody in our presence can be at ease. It's very important. Even wild tigers are not afraid or aggressive. They're only aggressive because they fear. Where there is no fear, there is no aggression. Isn't it? So please just sit nicely. So again, bring the attention to the breathing for a few breaths just to get our attention centered. And then visualize at the center of one's chest this diamond or this golden pearl-like. And then from that, it's radiating lights. So it's radiating lights which fill us all. These are warm lights. These are beautiful lights of love and forgiveness and acceptance. And the echoing, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be peaceful and at your ease. And first we direct it. I'm going to just tell you what to do. It's not a guided meditation. I'm going to tell you, and you have 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, because you've got to do a lot of things here. All right, so a quarter of an hour, 15 minutes to do it in. I tell you what to do. You do it at your own pace. So this light, this golden light, fills our whole being. Our whole being is filled with light, and it melts all the hardness in us, all the unkindness in us, all the rigidity and prejudices in us, so that we become just filled with love towards all beings, not just those that we like. All beings want to be happy. So we start by making ourselves feel at ease and feeling healed. It's healing light. Then this light radiates out and it enters someone that we love very much, someone that we're very close to or that we care about. And we imagine the light completely filling that person and really healing them in body, in mind, in spirit. Just they become completely filled with this golden light, and they're just so content and happy and at peace. Then we visualize somebody that we feel very neutral about. As I said, somebody that we know, but we've never really thought much one way or the other about their happiness or sorrow. And now we think of that person and we give them this love, this golden love which completely permeates them, and think how wonderful if they could be happy and free from suffering. Well, especially happy. The free from suffering we'll do later. How wonderful if they could be happy. And then we think of someone whom we don't like, maybe someone we have caused sorrow to, that we have not been kind towards, or who we have problems with. And we think, may that person be well and happy, peaceful, at their ease. And again, imagine that the light goes from our heart and fills them completely, permeates them to their overflowing. And then the light goes out and it goes all around everywhere. It fills this hall, it fills this center, it fills all the surroundings, through to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and then throughout Israel, then throughout the Middle East, and on throughout the world, and especially those places where there is pain, where there is suffering. Wishing well. I mean, in time, when if you do this practice by yourself, you can take even groups of people and focus on them, wishing them well, wishing them happy. especially people that you know are not well and happy. But for now, we just keep it like that because we only have this short time to visualize this. But here we are emphasizing the happiness. We are not emphasizing so much the suffering. That we will do this afternoon when we do compassion meditation. Now we are just wishing happiness to all beings. How wonderful if they should be peaceful and happy. All right? So we will just sit for 15 minutes. And the most important thing is first to really generate that sense of well-being within ourselves, really be able to feel that, because if we don't feel it, we can't give it to others. So we need to really generate that feeling that essentially, there is goodness, there is happiness. And from that to take it out and share it with other beings, those we love, those we're indifferent towards, those we have problems with, and ultimately to all sentient beings. All sentient beings also doesn't just mean humans, it also means animals, beings who live in the lakes and the rivers and the oceans, beings in the sky, beings under the earth, insects, beings in realms seen, beings in realms unseen, throughout the universe. All sentient beings. Sentient means they are conscious. All conscious beings. May they be well and happy.